Hello learners, I Nishant Sharma, Assistant Professor, Motilal Nehru College Evening, welcome you all again to the part 2 of the topic index numbers. So in the first part we have already understood the meaning of index numbers. We have also understood the usage and the limitations while constructing the index numbers. We also discussed how can we calculate the index numbers using the weighted methods and the unweighted methods. And now we will continue with some important index numbers which you can see on the screen as consumer price index, wholesale price index, and then index of industrial production. So let us first discuss the consumer price index, which is also known as the cost of living index. This consumer's price index or the cost of living index measures the average changes in the retail prices of the commodities which are consumed by the consumers. There are two methods with the help of which we can calculate the consumer's price index or the cost of living index. So if you can see closely on the screen, the first method sigma P01 is somewhat similar to a formula which we already have discussed in part first of the lecture. So this communicates as sigma P1 Q0 divided by sigma P0 Q0. So we already used this formula as last price index. So if you have to calculate consumer's price index using family budget method, you are doing nothing but you are using last price index. The other option which is available to you is the cost of living index formula, which is sigma of PW over sigma of W. So you can either use the term W or V to give the meaning to the weight. So weights can either be denoted by V or W, but usually because weights is written as W with W as weight, so we resort usually to W, but V can also be used. Now sometimes in questions when you are not given the price, you may also be given the index values itself along with the weights. So the formula stays the same, but instead of using sigma of PW over sigma W, we use sigma of IW over sigma of W. So P gets replaced with an I. Now let us understand the calculation of cost of living index or the consumer's price index with the help of a numerical example. So suppose you are given the following question that you have to calculate the consumer's price index from the data which is shown on the screen, and you also have to find out the increase in the wages to compensate any rise in the index if initially the worker was getting 3,500 rupees per month in the base year. So you are given different items, and along with the items you are given their prices in the base year 2018 and in the current year 2019. So you have 5 items, you have food, you have fuel, you have clothing, house rent, and then some miscellaneous items. The prices for these items in the year 2018 are given as 380, 140, 200 and 250, and the prices for the same items in the year 2019, which in this case becomes our current year, are 450, 120, 210, 225 and 300. Along with the prices, you are also given the weights for these items as 5, 2, 3, 3 and 2. Now how can we calculate the consumer's price index or the cost of living index? So if you can recall the formula was sigma of PW over sigma of W, and the capital P denotes your price relative. So firstly we will calculate the price relative. We will multiply the values of price relative with the weights, and then we will calculate the cost of living index number. So how we calculated price relative in the first part of the video? We divided P1 with P0 and multiplied the quantity with 100, which you can also see on the screen. For the first item food, we divided 450 with 300 and multiplied the quantity with 100, and this is how you arrive at 150. For fuel, again what you did is you divided 120 with 80, multiplied the ratio with 100 and arrived at 150. And similarly you can calculate price relatives for clothing, house. After having calculated the price relatives, you have to multiply the values of these price relatives with the weights which are assigned for each item. So 150 gets multiplied with 5 gives you a 750, 150 multiplied with 2 gives you a 300, 150 multiplied with 3 gives you a 450, 112.5 multiplied with 3 gives you a 337.5, and lastly 120 multiplied with 2 gives you a 240. After having calculated your WP and your weights, now you just have to apply the formula of sigma PW divided by sigma W. So when you take the total of the last column WP, you get 2077.5. You divide this 2077.5 with 15, which is the total of the weights column. You get the cost of living index number as 138.5. Now, what does this 138.5 communicate? This 138.5 means that there has been an increase of 38.5% in the prices of the commodity over the year 2018 to the year 2019. So if a worker who was earning, say for example, 100 rupees in the base year, his wages should now be at least 138.5 so as to compensate him for the rise in the index of the commodities. So in our case, in our example where the workers were earning 3500 per month, what should be the increase in this 3500 so as to enable the worker to maintain the same standard of living? That you can calculate by adding 38.5% to 3500 rupees, and that change comes out to be 1347.5. So 3500 plus 1347.5, now the worker should at least get 47.5 rupees to maintain the same standard of living as he was maintaining in the year 2018. And this is how you can calculate consumer's price index or cost of living index. Now coming over to the wholesale price index. So this wholesale price index number indicates the change in the general price level. Because it indicates the change in the general price level, this also communicates the pressure of inflation in the economy. But unlike the CPI, it does not have any reference to any consumer category. Also, one must know that the wholesale price index, which is for the time being calculated, it is calculated with the base of 2011 and 12. And when we take base, for any year, the base is always 100. And while calculating the wholesale price index, only the prevailing prices at the wholesale level, they are included, and only of the commodities. So only goods prices are included and the prices of services are not included. The next index that we have is the index of industrial production, which unlike the consumer's price index or the wholesale price index, this tries to measure the changes in the quantities. So far we were concerned with the changes in the prices, consumer's price index, wholesale price index. So you can see that the emphasis was on price. But now in case of index of industrial production, the focus shifts to the quantity. The calculation procedure is still the same and very easy to arrive at the index number of the industrial production. But instead of using the average of price relatives, now we use the quantity relatives. So we apply the same formula as was applied in case of last year, but instead of using P, we now use Q with weights. So the formula becomes sigma of Q with weights divided by sigma of W. And this Q communicates the relative of the quantities. Also, the index of industrial production, it is available at the level of industrial sectors and the subsectors. And one must remember that the main branches which are included in this index include the mining, manufacturing and electricity. Sometimes the focus shifts to core areas or the core industries, including the coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizers, steel and cements also. Now coming over to a very interesting subject, which is Sensex. Some of us already know about Sensex. Some of us have heard of this term but are not aware of what actually Sensex is. So Sensex is a sensitive index of the Bombay Stock Exchange. This term Sensex comes from sensitive index, SEN and EX. And this Sensex is actually a free float market weighted stock index of 30 well established and financially sound companies which are listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange. So Bombay Stock Exchange gives you Sensex and National Stock Exchange gives you Nifty, which is an index of 50 companies. So Sensex has been published since 1st of January 1986, and now the S&P BSE Sensex is regarded as the pulse of the domestic stock market in India. So with the change or with the movement in Sensex, we can easily predict the direction of the economy in which the economy is moving. Also, the base value of the Sensex was taken as 100 on 1st of April 1970 79 and its base year was taken to be as 1978-79. And on 25th of July 2001, BSE launched a dollar linked version of Sensex which is called Dolex 30. Now coming over to the last topic of this lecture, which is usage of index numbers in economics. So we have already discussed that how we can use consumers price index in situations like wage negotiation, in deflation, in formulation of income policies, in helping government how much DA should be given, in deciding the price policy, taxation, etc. Apart from these usage, CPI can also be used to convert the monetary wages or the nominal wages into real wages. Again, the very first example that I used in the first part of the video lecture, wherein the employee was getting 125 rupees, but the index value was 150. And when we calculated the real wages were not 125, but it was only 83.33. How we calculated this value of 83.33? Through deflation, by dividing 125 with 150 and multiplying the quantity with 100. Then the wholesale price index, this can be used to eliminate the changes or the effect of the changes which take place at the aggregate level in the prices. Also, because wholesale price index is something that communicates the general price level in the economy, this can also be used as a measure to measure the rate of inflation in the economy. And lastly, we have the index of industrial production, which gives you a quantitative figure about the changes in the production which is taking place in the industrial sector. And Sensex, which is an economic barometer of the health of the economy. Again, I've been saying this time and again I will reiterate that an increase in Sensex generally communicates a good sentiment to the market and it implies that the economy is booming. On the other hand, a continuously falling Sensex implies bad sentiments in the market and may also imply that the economy is moving backwards instead of moving forward. And with this, part 2 of index number comes to an end. Thank you so much for watching and staying with us.